Hello and welcome to this week's IG Live. I am so excited to be talking to Dawnshaeé Reid. She is a bookstagrammer, a digital creator, and she has created a job for herself where she gets to talk and write about literature for a living. So we're going to be talking to her about how she accomplished that, exactly what she does, and how she made herself a career doing what she loves. And you get to hear all about all the different forms that she does in social media. She has an online book club that you can join, which is really amazing. So we'll be talking to her about that. Again, that's Dawnshaeé Reid, and you can find her at Intro to Eclecticism, and that is also the name of her blog. She graduated from the University of Kentucky in May 2017 with a Bachelor of Science in Public Health. And now, as I mentioned, now, as I mentioned, she is a bookstagrammer, digital creator who gets... Hold on just a minute while we get her on here for you. Hello.
Hi.
So good to talk to you again.
I know, it's so good to see you. How are you?
And thank you for making it work. I know you have a busy schedule, so I appreciate that we were able to kind of move things around and make it work so that you could join us. I appreciate that. And why don't we go ahead and jump in, and you can introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
Okay. My name is Dawnshaeé Reid, and I am a reader. I write. I do community building. I do a lot of things, but it's all underneath Intro to Eclecticism, and that name just derives from my ability to touch on all these things and like embrace them. I feel like I was always like told that I needed to focus on one thing growing up, like just focus on one thing. And I made the page to kind of remind myself that it's okay to explore and just see all those things out. And as long as I can manage all the hats, I'm going to wear them. So.
Well, you somehow you do. You make it work so beautifully. Why don't we actually talk about that a little bit, about eclecticism? Maybe you could define it for us, just so everybody's clear what we're talking about. And then I know you said a lot of it for you, it means going through the world with an open mind. And so what do you think that people are missing out on when they don't have that kind of perspective?
So like my definition for eclecticism is just like your inspiration, like your output is derived from all of these different places and all of these different things. And I think that enhances the way that I look at life. And you said like as far as like if like how that hinders people like when they have a closed mind. I think like when you aren't striving for the ability to see things beyond what you're used to seeing, and being able to embrace those things, it prevents you from being able to grow and discover these new parts of yourself that you wouldn't have found any other way. And I think a lot of that for me specifically comes from books, and just seeing these new worlds, because I can only see from my perspective if I allow myself to be limited that way. I think eclecticism requires you to step out of yourself more often than you would like to, and challenge you to see beyond that.
Yeah, and books, like you say, are such a great way to do that, to be able to kind of walk in somebody else's shoes for a while. And so much of what you do does revolve around literature. So tell us a little bit more about that. Were you always an avid reader? Where does that passion for literature come from?
Um, I have always been in love with reading since the beginning of time. I actually did like this mini Q&A on my stories the other day, and someone asked like what book inspired my love for reading, and it was a children's book because I had the opportunity to read it to my elementary school when I was in like second grade, maybe like first or second grade, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like always glued to my teacher, like trying to get any opportunity to read to the class, like popcorn reading, all of that. I wanted to do it all. I wanted to always be reading. And that's just like where my love for reading started. And I will say that like I'm kind of grateful for like the pandemic because it brought reading back to the forefront of my life because I had so much free time. So of course I read during undergrad, but it was all focused on like my degree in public health, like you were mentioning. And it was just a breath of fresh air, like back in 2019, 2020, when I was like, okay, I'm getting back into reading heavy. And I would read like maybe like 5 books a year or like 7 books a year and like call it that. But I started reading like 5, 7 books a month, and I was like, oh, I can really do this. I can really like redirect my time because I don't even know what I would have been spending my time on. Like looking back, I don't know what I was doing in my free time. I didn't have any extracurriculars. My daughter wasn't born yet. And it was just like I had time to do any and everything. But with the pandemic and just slowing down and taking the time to say, okay, I have these free hours in my day, I can read this book. And that book was actually the Celeste Ng book. Oh, it's an adaptation. Oh, it's everything's something. It has Kerry Washington in it.
Oh,
And it
okay.
was on Hulu.
I know which one you're talking about because I've read. I love her. Yes, I know what you mean.
Yes,
Now I'm
I
now.
don't know why it's escaping me.
Oh, Little Fires Everywhere.
Little Fires Everywhere. Yes, yes. See, I always have so many books in my mind. But yes, Little Fires Everywhere. And that was one of the first books that was really like, okay, I'm doing this for real. Like, I'm just going to keep reading and keep reading and keep reading. And so that's just how that came about.
And well, I have to ask, what was the book that you read to your class when you were in second grade?
It's called Are You My Mother by P.D. Eastman.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know that one.
I love it so much.
Well, I love that you remember that book so vividly, but also that you were reading to your class. A lot of kids would not, like, they'd feel too shy to do that. But I love that it's like it was like your first, whatever, like podcast or, about a
Yeah.
book. You were sharing it with your class. So, I mean, it's interesting that not only you had that love of books, but you all had that drive to share it with other people, even from an early age.
Yeah, I think like my parents were very like, can you please just sit down somewhere? Because I've always been like super active. I've always been trying to like get and be a part of stuff. And you would think someone who's like raised with 4 other siblings would be like, okay, I don't want to be around people, but I just love it. I love it so much. And like even just as a child, we only had one bathroom, and I would always go to the bathroom like for pure privacy, and I would just be in there reading. And my parents would be like, "You cannot do that. You can't just stay in the bathroom. Other people have to use the bathroom." But it's like, I only have one more chapter, just one more chapter. But it's just always been a big part, and they've been supportive. They've always been supportive of my love for reading, and I think that's super important. Having those parents that support the love of reading.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's really encouraging for those of us that are parents, that what a difference we can make to our kids. I just have to say, I love the bathroom story. I can relate because I'm the youngest of four, and we had a bookshelf right next to the bathroom, which I don't know if that's a great idea or a bad idea, because I would do the same thing because you just want somebody to read,
That's
right?
a perfect place to have the book. Like,
It
just take one on your way in.
is. Right. Yeah, just get the book you want and head on in. Um, so I love the fact that to me you're like living the dream because I'm also an avid reader, but you've been able to create this career for yourself where it's all about reading, sharing your love of reading. You have, let's see, you have a blog, you have a book club, you have a major social media presence. How have you been able to kind of craft this career for yourself doing what you love so much?
Whew. I do want to say, like, aside from like my book club and my personal page, I also have a full-time job. And I think a lot of people miss that piece within what I do, because it's just such a part of everything that I do. Um, but my job is also within the book sphere, which I think it was just like a wonderful fate of reality that made that my reality.
Mm-hmm.
I've always done like community focused jobs. Like that has always been my thing. Even with public health, I focused on community building and just like all type of public crisis and creating community events and opportunities around that. So when I was pregnant with my daughter, I didn't work for a while. I started working at Barnes and Noble after she was like 6 months old, trying to get back into the idea of working. And then I came across the company that I work for now, and it was just like, okay, this is cool. I think I can apply to, do social media and digital marketing for books. I love books. That's right up my alley. So I applied and then I got that job. But I try to keep the two of those very separate because my community is different from their community. And although it's both a love of books, it's just we have our, we're just two distinctive groups. And I love what they do and I love what I do. And so it's just nice to have both of those perspectives, which kind of contributes to, my eclecticism. As far as managing all of it, I have no idea how I manage it. I just get stuff done. I'll literally just add it to my calendar. But to be completely transparent and honest, it can be very overwhelming because I'm like, am I showing up for the people that are in front of me and around me? Like, am I still being a great mom? Am I still, doing everything that I need to do at work while also catering to Intro to Eclecticism? And so oftentimes my blog takes the back seat just because it takes a lot of time out of your day, to write and trying to like really hone in on your own thoughts after you've had a long day of working and a long day of momming and a long day of doing all these other things. And I'm very grateful for like all of my book club friends because they're so supportive. They're like, girl, we got you. We understand. Like I'll hop on our meetings. I'll be like, y'all, I'm so tired today. And they'll be like, it's okay. We know you're doing a lot. And so there are times where like I can go full force with book club. And then there are times where like, you guys got to cover for me because I just need a second. I just need some time. And so it's just a lot of like trying to juggle all the things. And like I've been working on coming to terms with myself that not everything is going to be able to have 100% of me. And that's okay. As long as I'm showing up and trying to do the best that I can, like the right people will stick around and the right opportunities will present themselves. So
I love that. I mean, I think that's a good message because I think a lot of us are trying to juggle a lot of different things, and there's always that guilt that you're not doing all of them as well as you could. And obviously, if you just had one thing, maybe you would, and you were totally focused on that, it would be different. But I also love the book club example because I think that speaks to the community that you've created. You created this really supportive community that it doesn't rely just on you.
Yeah.
It's not doesn't rely on you just to drive it. You've created this wonderful community that can also pitch in and help out, and to help drive that along. And I wanted to talk about how you've done that because one of my favorite quotes when I was reading up on you is you said, "I believe the world we create for ourselves inadvertently affects everyone. So I decided to make it a priority to be of service and bring some sort of light in each room that I grace with my presence." I had to read that over a few times because I thought it was so great. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So the of service part comes from public health. When I was in undergrad, it took me a long time to kind of decide what I wanted my major to be. I just know I wanted it to be community facing. I wanted to make sure that I was helping people or making sure people were enjoying themselves when even the hardest things are happening around them. Like you can still find that little glimmer of hope, that little shine. And I try to do that everywhere that I go. So before this job that I'm working, I work for our health department for our syringe exchange services, which is for people who inject drugs. And I would come in contact with a lot of people that had very polarizing and like heartfelt stories, and just the joy for them. It was just having the opportunity to talk to someone. And I always like that, like gave me the fuel to keep going and just to keep trying to help any way that I can. And oftentimes help is not monetary. Some people just need someone to listen and to be heard. And I think that's a lot of why I love books so much, because a lot of authors are creating these stories because they need to be heard and they need to be told. And they're creating this insight that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so I've had all of these jobs that have exposed me to the power of being a light. And I don't even try to describe myself as being a light. People like try to, like, they tell me that, or they'll be like, oh, you brighten my day, or you have this really like magnificent aura around you that like draws people in. And I'm just like, oh, that's cool, great. It was a pleasure talking to you. It's just, I love talking and hearing from people and just getting the opportunity to engage any way that I can. I think it's powerful. I think everyone has that ability to do it. They just have to turn that light switch on.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And I think that all speaks to how you are being such an inspiration. I know that's always been one of your goals, is in your motivations, not just like you said, I mean, books are just kind of a way to help amplify those books. I mean, as you're promoting these books, especially diverse books, our own voices books, you're helping amplify these stories that need to be told, and about being an inspiration to people, and specifically to Black girls and women. How do you think that that's influenced your work in terms of, you know, what you're doing? It's more than just a job. You have this purpose and trying to be of service to people.
Um, I think it just helps because I've met a lot of people. They'll be like, they'll comment on my TikToks and be like, oh my gosh, girl, you just told me that I need to get off TikTok and go read a book. And I'm hoping that people aren't just like seeing that and actually doing it, which I think a lot of people have. And I can just say that from the book club alone. My book club only reads books by Black authors, because we're not, Black authors aren't always at the top of people's like TBR list or what they want to read. And I think the way that the book club is growing, and just seeing people like, oh, I didn't even know I wanted to pick up this book, or I didn't even expect to like this book as much as I did. Like, I feel like that is so, like, that is music to my ears. Like, that's all I want to hear, is that, like, I read this book and I had no intentions on reading it, or I read this book that you recommended and I haven't read in like months or years. And I'm just like, that is insane that my little word of mouth created someone else to do this activity of reading. And I just think it's cool.
Yeah, I was actually thinking when you were talking earlier about how you went from reading 5 to 7 books a year to suddenly reading 5 to 7 a month, and you found this time that you didn't even realize you had. Because I think that's one of the number one things I hear from people is like, oh, I just don't have time to read, which I can definitely sympathize with, because I felt like I don't feel like I have enough time, you know, as much as I want. So I was wondering what your advice would be, but it almost seems like, I know you've done like reading challenges, or maybe joining the book club like yours, that it kind of encourages you or gives you that motivation to read things that maybe you wouldn't, or to sit down and read that maybe you've been putting off. Do you have any other recommendations for people who, to kind of get them motivated to get back into reading?
I always like go back to community. I think people see reading as like a solo act. And it doesn't have to be solo. It can be very intimate. What really jump started like even me reading the way that I was, like, I was reading with my partner at the time, and like even just reading with one other person can change the way that you experience a story. And so just reaching out to somebody else to connect with while reading can push you to finishing the book. And I think that can help a lot. I also suggest like even just starting small, like 10 pages a day. You'll realize that, oh, I'm reading 10 pages a day, but I don't want the story to end, so I'm going to do 20. And then your 20 can easily turn into, oh my goodness, I just read 2 chapters in one sitting and it was a complete accident. I've even seen that happen with my nephew. He's 7, and just last year he was in first grade, and I would talk to him about reading, and he was like, I don't like to read. I don't like to read. But I just went out to Barnes and Noble over the weekend to purchase the book 2 in this series that he started, because he's been loving it so much. And I'm just like, you see the way in time, like even with the youth, that if you just stick at it, if you try it, if you find your book, then it makes it easier for you to keep reading. But I think we have this very large opportunity to connect with other people and other readers, especially with social media being so accessible. There's a way to find new books or discover those books that seem so niche that you may think, oh, that book doesn't even exist, but they do. You just have to find the right people to spread the word about it. And so, yeah, just finding the community.
Oh, I love that. And that's a community for anybody who's interested. How do they join your book club?
You can join the book club at the link in my bio. It's actually, the way it works is 100% virtual. So we do a lot of messaging through Discord throughout the month, which is like just a server app. A lot of people use it for like gaming groups and like business professional groups, but it works for book club, and I've seen a few other book clubs use it as well. And then we meet once a month, typically the last Sunday of each month on Zoom, and we just talk about the book at the end of the month, and then we get a new book.
So what, I mean, people can find this out by going to your social media, but what book are you reading this month?
This month, we're reading Chain Gang All Stars. It's right here. Chain Gang All Stars. I haven't started it yet because I'm reading quite a few other books. Well, I'm finishing up the Summer I Turned Pretty series, and so that was pretty cool. But again, I typically read like 5 or 7 books a month, and I like to keep that one closer to our discussion day,
Right.
or I'll read it when like the discussion in the Discord is very chatty and buzzy, and I'm like, wait, what are y'all talking about? Don't spoil it for me. I'm coming right back. I'm gonna catch up. And so it just depends on how the momentum's going in with the book club when I pick it up. But that's what we're reading this month. I've heard so many good things so far. So
well,
looking forward.
Just to wrap it up, because I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you're busy, but you were such an inspiration to so many people. It made me wonder, where do you get your inspiration from? What keeps you going?
Lately I've been trying to redefine that for myself. So a lot of it has been trying to again connect with the people around me and those closest to me and making sure that they feel loved. But I've also been like incorporating running. I know, running into my life. And I'm an inside the house girl, so like me running willingly, like nothing's chasing me, running. I've been doing that, and that has really like sparked a lot of joy for me, especially in the mornings. I feel like I always have a lot on my plate, so my initial thought when I wake up lately has been, well, like before I started incorporating running, has been, oh my goodness, I have so much happening today. Like it's been like a very like down, like I haven't been as positive and uplifted about like what I get the opportunity to do in my day. So I've been getting a lot of inspiration by just getting up and going. And then for the people who follow me, they know that I do my songs of the day. So I share a song on my story every day that kind of speaks to how I'm feeling, or it has, caught my attention, because I have my Alexas going in my house usually all day, and I just have random playlists playing on Spotify, and they're really great at curating playlists. So I'll have that going, I'll share my music, and those are the things that really inspire me. But then the most obvious one is my books. They keep me going and make me want to try more. And then the community, the people that I talk to, they're all great.
Well, you are an inspiration to us. So thank you for taking the time. It is such a pleasure to talk with you and to hear from you. For anybody who's joining us late, this is going to be up on Instagram in just a few minutes, and later we'll have it on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Dawnshaeé, for joining us.
Having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.